Welcome back to the Before AGI podcast. Self-driving cars, They used to be pure science fiction, but now,
They're holding up traffic in the real world.
yeah, and causing, well, maybe a little chaos sometimes.
A bit.
But that's exactly why we're doing a deep dive today on AI and autonomous vehicles.
That's good.
We've got tons of articles and reports to go through.
A whole stack.
So buckle up, everybody.
Let's go.
We'll figure out how the tech behind all of this works, who's building it, and what challenges they face.
It really is incredible how fast this tech's become part of our everyday lives.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago that self-driving cars were pretty much just research projects.
Right.
And now, look at companies like Waymo. They've driven millions of miles without anyone behind the wheel.
I know, it's crazy. Speaking of Waymo, they're definitely one of the big players in this whole autonomous vehicle world,
Definitely.
along with companies like Cruise, Tesla, Amazon Zoox.
Oh yeah, all the big names.
It's like every tech giant wants a piece of the self-driving pie.
I mean, can you blame them? It's huge.
But before we get into who's winning the robo race,
Right.
I'm really curious about how AI actually makes these driverless cars possible.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really does seem like magic.
It does feel like magic, but it's really some very cool engineering and computer science.
Oh, for sure.
Basically, it all starts with giving the car a way to, kind of perceive the world around it.
Okay.
Like giving it eyes and a brain, so to speak.
I like that.
Autonomous vehicles use a whole bunch of sensors, things like cameras, radar, LiDAR,
Right.
all to constantly scan their surroundings and build a 3D map of everything.
So it's like the car's always building this virtual model of the world around it.
Exactly. And then, the real magic part, that comes in with deep learning algorithms.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of convolutional neural networks, or CNNs?
I've heard the term before, but honestly, I'm a little fuzzy on what they actually are.
Okay, yeah,
I bet a lot of our listeners are in the same boat.
probably.
Could you maybe break it down for us?
Of course. Okay, imagine you're teaching a kid to tell the difference between, say, cats and dogs.
Okay.
You show them tons and tons of pictures.
Right.
Eventually, they start to pick up on the differences based on the patterns they see, the shapes, all that.
Yeah, makes sense.
CNNs, well, they work in a similar way.
Interesting.
By analyzing millions and millions of images, they learn to identify the things that make different objects unique. Things like pedestrians, other cars, lane markings, even those rogue shopping carts you see sometimes.
Oh, yeah. The ones rolling down the street.
Exactly. So it's like the AI is always playing this massive game of where's Waldo?
Uh-huh. I love that analogy.
But instead of Waldo, it's looking for stop signs, squirrels running across the road, you name it.
So it's not just about identifying those objects, right? The AI also has to figure out what they mean and what to do about them.
Absolutely. That's where something called sensor fusion comes in.
Sensor fusion.
Yeah. It means combining all the data from those different sensors, the cameras, the radar, the LiDAR, to make an even more complete picture of everything around the car.
So each sensor has its own strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
And combining them gives the AI a clearer view of the world.
Exactly. It's kind of like getting multiple opinions before you make a big decision.
I like that analogy.
Each sensor has its superpower.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, cameras, they're great for seeing colors, textures.
Okay.
Radar, that can see through fog and rain, which is really helpful.
Yeah.
And LiDAR, that's what gives you really precise 3D mapping.
So by putting all that information together, the AI gets a much better understanding of what's happening around the car.
Exactly.
So now the car can, quote unquote, see what's around it.
Right.
But how does it actually decide what to do next?
That's a great question.
I'm guessing it's got to be more complicated than just following the lines on the road, right?
Oh, way more complicated.
Yeah. I figured
This is where real-time decision-making takes over.
real-time decision making.
Yeah. So the AI has to constantly predict what other cars and people are going to do,
That's a lot.
plan a safe route, adjust its speed and steering, all while following traffic laws and dealing with road conditions that are changing all the time.
Wow. So that's a lot for the AI to handle.
It is, and it makes you realize why these companies are putting so much money into research and development.
Totally.
It's like they're trying to build a digital brain that can handle all the tricky parts of driving.
That's wild. But let's be honest. We've also seen those headlines about self-driving cars making mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
It makes you wonder, how reliable is this technology really?
It's a valid question.
Yeah.
You're right. There have been some pretty high-profile incidents. And one of the biggest challenges they're working on are these things called edge cases.
Edge cases.
Yeah, those are like the rare, unexpected situations that even the most advanced AI might struggle with.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like, think about really heavy rain or snow, the kind that makes it hard for the sensors to see clearly.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem.
Or unexpected road construction, detours, things like that.
Right.
Or even something as simple as a flock of birds suddenly flying across the road.
Oh, wow.
Anything that might startle or confuse a human driver.
I get it. So it makes sense that the AI might have trouble with things it's never encountered before.
Right. And it's not just about the AI itself, it's also about how well the AI can actually adapt to different real-world environments.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like one of the articles we have here, it talks about Wave, a company that's developing self-driving tech in London.
London, wow.
And London, it's famous for its narrow streets, the crazy traffic, pedestrians jaywalking everywhere.
Oh, yeah. London's a whole different ballgame.
It's a huge challenge for AI to handle that kind of complex environment.
That makes sense.
So the environment itself can really impact how well these systems perform.
I see.
It's not just about the AI, it's about how well it can adapt to the real world.
So true. And, this brings up another big hurdle for self-driving cars. Regulations.
Oh, absolutely. That's a big one.
It sounds like a real regulatory maze.
It kind of is.
I mean, where do you even begin to make rules for cars that drive themselves?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
For sure.
Right now, we've got this mix of federal guidelines and state regulations, all trying to figure out how to apply existing laws to technology that barely existed a decade ago.
That sounds complicated.
It is.
So it's like the Wild West out there,
A little bit, yeah.
with each state making up its own rules as it goes along.
Pretty much.
No wonder it's taking so long to get these cars on the road everywhere.
It's a process.
California, though, they've been more, I guess, proactive, right?
Definitely.
They require companies to get permits and report any incidents they have.
Right, which is how we know about some of the, let's say, unexpected interactions between robotaxis and the real world.
Like that whole incident in San Francisco where a cruise vehicle blocked an ambulance.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
I remember that, making headlines everywhere.
It was a big deal.
It seems like every time one of those high-profile incidents happens, it sets back public trust in the technology.
Unfortunately, that's true. Public perception is so important for getting people to accept this technology.
Makes sense.
And incidents like that really make people less confident.
Well, it's understandable why people are hesitant.
Yeah.
We're talking about trusting a machine with our lives.
That's a big leap for some people.
It is, and
Yeah.
it's hard to shake off those images we've seen in movies, robots malfunctioning and all that.
Oh, for sure, those sci-fi scenarios stick with you.
Yeah.
But honestly, to build public trust, what we need is rigorous testing, being transparent about what the tech can and can't do, and clearly communicating the benefits.
So basically, building trust is just as important as building the technology itself.
Absolutely.
But on a more positive note, I'm curious about those potential benefits.
Oh, there are a ton.
Everyone talks about how self-driving cars could completely change transportation, but what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, the potential benefits are huge. If we can overcome the hurdles we've talked about.
Right.
Self-driving cars could make our roads way safer, reduce traffic jams, and even help people who can't drive themselves get around.
That's amazing. So we've got safer roads, less traffic, and everyone can get where they need to go.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
It does sound pretty good, right?
Yeah. What about the economic impact, though? There's been a lot of talk about self-driving cars disrupting whole industries.
That's definitely true.
From trucking to taxis, everyone's worried.
It's going to be significant for sure.
Yeah.
We're already seeing companies like Waymo and Cruise teaming up with Uber and Lyft.
Oh, wow.
This could mean people start moving away from owning their own cars and toward transportation as a service.
Transportation as a service.
Yeah, where you just order a self-driving car whenever you need one.
Huh. That's interesting.
This is a whole different way of thinking about transportation.
It sounds like the future of transportation is going to be pretty different from what we're used to. Oh, definitely different, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's not just about getting from point A to point B anymore. It's about who's controlling how we get around, how we share the roads, what kind of future we want to create.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, we have to think bigger than just the tech itself.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot today, from the AI behind it all to the regulations.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's still so much more to explore,
Definitely.
especially when it comes to what all of this means for us, the people who will be sharing the road with these driverless vehicles.
That's a really important point.
And welcome back to the Before AGI podcast.
Glad you're still with us as we keep going deeper into AI and these autonomous vehicles.
Definitely. So before we took a break, we were talking about the impact self-driving cars could have on our economy, our way of life.
Right, right.
But there's another side to this whole thing that we haven't really gotten into yet.
Okay, what's that?
Well, the fact that AI could not only drive our cars, but completely change entire industries.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. We've been focused on the challenges of actually getting these self-driving cars on the road.
Sure.
It's easy to forget about the bigger picture.
Totally.
What industries are you thinking about, specifically?
Let's start with trucking. Imagine a world where all those long-haul trucks are automated, driving themselves.
Okay, yeah.
No drivers needed.
Driverless trucks, wow.
They could run 24/7, make deliveries way more efficient, probably even make shipping cheaper.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Right. But then you have to think about all the truck drivers out there.
Right, of course.
Millions of them.
What happens to their jobs?
Exactly. A lot of people could lose their jobs because of this technology.
That's a serious concern.
It is definitely something we need to be thinking about carefully.
For sure.
But it's also important to remember that new tech, it often creates new jobs, too.
Oh, that's true.
The self-driving car industry is already creating jobs in software, AI research, sensors, all sorts of fields.
I hadn't thought about it that way.
It's not always about jobs disappearing. Sometimes they just shift from one place to another.
Interesting.
It's possible some truck drivers could move into managing those fleets of autonomous trucks or maintaining them.
That's a good point.
The key is going to be having the training and support systems in place so people can adapt to this new world.
I'm also curious about how self-driving cars might change other industries, not just trucking.
Right.
What else comes to mind?
Think about what it could do for last-mile delivery. Like when you order something online,
Okay.
imagine ordering a pizza, and instead of a delivery person, this little self-driving robot brings it to your door.
Huh. That does sound kind of sci-fi.
I know, right? But pretty cool.
It is. I could get used to that.
And it's not just about convenience.
Oh, I'm sure there's more.
These autonomous delivery systems, they could make cities more efficient, less traffic, fewer emissions.
So it's not just replacing drivers. It's about rethinking how our cities and transportation systems work.
Exactly. You got it. The self-driving revolution isn't just about the tech. It's about urban planning, being environmentally friendly, making life better for everyone.
I'm really starting to see the bigger picture here. It goes way beyond just cars.
It does.
It's about a better future, more sustainable, more fair.
That's the goal, right? And this brings up something super important about this whole self-driving revolution. Accessibility.
Accessibility, you mean for people with disabilities?
Yes. Self-driving cars, they could give people with disabilities a level of independence they never had before.
I see what you mean.
Imagine someone who's blind or uses a wheelchair being able to travel anywhere they want without relying on someone else to drive them.
Wow, that would be incredible.
Life-changing for so many people.
Yeah.
It's a perfect example of how tech can empower people, make society more inclusive.
Absolutely. This is really powerful stuff.
It is, and it brings us to another thing we need to talk about, the role of the government, regulations, all that.
We touched on the regulatory stuff earlier, but I'm curious, how do you think government policies can help shape how this technology develops and gets rolled out?
Well, governments have a huge role to play here.
I'm sure.
They need to make clear, consistent rules, keep people safe, but also not stifle innovation.
Right, it's a balance.
It is.
That's tough.
And they need to invest in upgrading infrastructure, things like smart traffic lights, dedicated lanes for autonomous vehicles.
So those self-driving cars can actually fit into our current transportation systems.
Exactly. It has to be a team effort.
Like a collaboration between the industry, the government, and everyday people.
Exactly. Tech companies can't do this alone. Everyone needs to be involved.
And this conversation needs to happen now, right?
It does. The decisions we make today are going to shape the future of transportation for a long time.
I agree.
We have to be smart, informed, proactive, and make sure these self-driving cars benefit everyone.
You've definitely given us a lot to think about. It's clear this whole self-driving car thing is so much bigger than just replacing human drivers.
It is.
It could change our cities, our industries, our lives.
In ways we can't even imagine yet.
And welcome back to the Before AGI podcast.
Glad to be here.
We've been on quite a ride exploring this world of AI and self-driving cars.
It's been a fascinating deep dive.
And it's pretty clear this tech has the power to revolutionize not just transportation, but our whole society.
It's a real game changer.
Oh, for sure.
And like with any big tech shift, there's going to be some bumps in the road.
Absolutely. There always are.
We've talked about the technical challenges, all the regulations, and that whole thing about building trust with the public.
Right. Those are big ones.
But I think it's important to remember we're still in the early stages of this whole thing.
Yeah, it's all pretty new.
The tech's changing so fast, and the future of self-driving cars, well, it's being written right now.
That's actually a pretty exciting thought.
It is.
It means we have a chance to shape this technology, make sure it's used for the right reasons.
I totally agree, and I think one of the most important things we can all do is stay informed, stay engaged.
What do you mean by that? How can our listeners stay ahead of the curve when everything's changing so fast?
Well, there are a few things people can do.
Oh, okay, I'm listening.
First, stay up to date on what's happening in this field.
Makes sense.
Read articles, follow industry blogs, go to conferences.
So basically, keep learning.
Exactly. The more you know, the better you'll understand the opportunities and the challenges that are coming.
Being a lifelong learner, that's something we're all about here on the Before AGI podcast.
Love it. Second, don't be afraid to actually try out the tech yourself.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of car companies now, they offer vehicles with those advanced driver assistance features.
Yeah, I've seen those.
It's a way to get a glimpse of what self-driving will be like, get comfortable with the idea of the car making some decisions.
Like a stepping stone to full autonomy, getting used to the idea.
Exactly. And finally, talk about it.
Oh, have conversations.
Yeah. Talk to your friends, your family, your colleagues about the future of transportation.
Share those thoughts and concerns.
Exactly. The more we talk about this stuff, the better prepared we'll be as a society to handle the challenges and embrace the opportunities of this whole self-driving revolution.
I love that it's not just about the tech itself, it's about how we use it.
It is.
How it shapes our world.
And I think it's really important to approach this whole thing with a sense of, curiosity and optimism.
I agree, there's a lot to be excited about.
So much. Imagine a future where there are almost no car accidents.
Wow.
Where people with disabilities can get around easily, where our cities are cleaner, more efficient.
That's a pretty amazing vision.
It is, and while there will definitely be some bumps along the way,
Sure, yeah.
I really believe the future of transportation is a bright one.
I like the sound of that.
And I think AI and these autonomous vehicles will play a big part in making that happen.
I couldn't agree more. It's been a great conversation exploring all of this with you.
Thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of this whole world of AI and autonomous vehicles. It's exciting stuff.
It is.
We hope you keep learning, exploring, and talking about these important issues.
For sure.
And if you're looking for even more insights into the world of AI, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out Ian Okieng's YouTube channel.
Ian Okieng AI, it's a great channel.
It is. He's got in-depth tutorials, thought-provoking discussions, definitely worth a watch.
I second that.
So until next time, drive safe, everybody. Whether you're behind the wheel or letting the AI take over, this is the Before AGI podcast signing off.